a lot of folks ask, well, Menchaca, why do you do this sort of thing? And, if people don't kind of know my history, I'd like to take you back to Boyle Heights. That's where my grandfather started a small glass shop on Evergreen and what was then called Brooklyn, called the Evergreen Glass Shop. The thought was that this burgeoning community of Latino business owners could do something positive, could do something to really impact the community. He gave my uncle a loan. I think back then it was, $1,000, which today is a lot of money. And he opened the pharmacy on Cesar Chavez and Soto, the Ramirez pharmacy, my uncle Eddie Ramirez. There was a young lawyer at the time, a young kid who wanted to go to law school. They gave him a little bit of money. He became Carlos Uranga, a judge in the Alhambra Superior Court. There was a young guy who said, I want to run for office, but I really don't have the support or the money. They said, you know what, we'll get our friends together, we'll pool our funds, and we'll make something happen. That became State Senator Alex Garcia. That's really the predecessor. My grandfather and that little glass shop is the predecessor of the LPN. Because the thought is that we come together as a community, we can create something powerful, and we can get behind candidates and people who are trying to do amazing things. Grassroots, like Eric. And people say, oh, well, why do you support Eric? His record of accomplishment speaks for itself. He's done amazing things in Echo Park, Hollywood, Silver Lake. But that's not why I support him. I support him because of his character. I support him because, honestly, Eric Garcetti is a nice guy. He's a humble individual, and I think that this is the kind of person that we need in leadership position. Someone who thinks about the communities that they represent. And man, he's just a great guy. I love him. But without further ado, I'd like to call my friend up, because he is a friend.
Alejandro, thank you for being like the ultimate connector in Los Angeles. We are a city that's thought of as a place where we live these disparate lives. And there are few people who are hubs. The old cliche, we're all 6 degrees of separation between each other. There's this great research that was done years ago that actually most human beings are much further than 6 degrees away from each other, except for the existence of these people who are like 3 degrees away from us all. And they're the ones who connect us and who make sure, I don't know how many times you're going to go to heaven, because you must have about 7,500 marriages that have come out of LPN events. You really are an extraordinary human being, and I know that you don't get involved in politics, and you haven't in such a direct way before this race, and it means the world to me, and it's something I won't forget, and your story is my story. As we talked about, my grandfather had a tailor shop on Brooklyn Avenue in Boyle Heights. That same story of people coming here to Los Angeles and finding that opportunity is just extraordinary, and you have remembered to make sure through LPN that we give back, and that we keep bringing people up, and that as we get to be successful, we celebrate that success, but it comes with something that we pay back down. My father last July 4th gave me an incredible gift. He pulled out a box, kind of a lock box, and handed it to me, and he said, this was something I wanted to give to you when you were 18, but I forgot and found it in the closet. And that's what old age does to you. He's a great man, but he's very sharp still. But I looked at this, I opened it up, and it was a bunch of envelopes. I was like, well, what is this? Is it, that inheritance I've been hearing about? Is it great advice? Is it, what is it? Exactly right. I don't know. So I look at these envelopes, and they're sealed, and they're letters with dates on them. And I looked at the first one, and it said February 4th, 1971, which is my birth date. And I looked at him, and I realized these were letters that he had written me, that he had sealed and never given to me. And as I opened up this 41-year-old letter and read it, it was a father writing to his son coming home from the hospital and bringing him home and into this world. And he talked about the world that I was being born into, and I'll never forget, he wrote, I hope that we can create a better world for you than the one that you're being born into. It was in the middle of the Vietnam War. There's been assassinations of great leaders in this country, and it was a tumultuous time. And he hoped so deeply, as the way we do for those we love, our children, those around us, for something better. And then there was a letter 5 years later when my grandfather, my mom's dad, passed away, and so that I'd know what kind of a man he was, and other letters all the way up to when I went off to college. It was the most extraordinary gift I've ever received. It was just so moving that during this campaign, about 2 months in, my wife and I had a daughter named Maya come to us, and Maya, I decided I wanted to do the same thing for her. And so I've been writing her a few letters, and as tired as I've been, as hard as I've been working, I said, I got to do one before Election Day. So a couple of weeks, I sat down at the dinner table with a blank piece of paper and just started writing father to his daughter. And I laid into that letter all my hopes for her in this world, of the kind of city I hoped that she would find, that I hoped I could lead as mayor, but no matter what, that I would fight for as an Angelino, and one that I hoped she could, when she was my age, look back and say this was a better city than the one that I was born into. And Los Angeles has all those ingredients for greatness. I mean, just look around at each other. The most staggering, breathtaking diversity ever assembled in any city in human history. The most creative, hardworking people. With weather where at this hour we can, be outside right now. The topography of this terrain that is here, the geography of the dynamism that's happening in the world, in Latin America and the Pacific Rim. We're like the pinpoint between those two places. Amazing institutions from Caltech to USC to UCLA, creating more intellectual capital than any city anywhere in the world. But we all have this blank piece of paper before us right now, right here tonight, that I invite you to pick a pen up and begin to write those words or those lines or paragraphs with me, to write to each one of us our hopes for what Los Angeles can and should be. And I was asked a couple weeks ago by a reporter, are you still as idealistic as you were when you were in college and involved with this and that and you're a big activist? And I said, I had to think about it for a moment, and I said, yeah, actually I'm more idealistic today. I'm more idealistic today because with Anna and with my team and with the community, I know what we've accomplished, real material change on the streets of Los Angeles in those neighborhoods that Alejandro mentioned. I mean, you all remember what it was like in Hollywood 15 years ago? We tripled the number of parks, not from 1 to 3, but from 16 to 47 parks. Every constituent in our district has a park within walking distance. We doubled the number of schools so the kids didn't have to leave their neighborhood on a bus to go to a school, which destabilized the neighborhood. And gang membership was high, and people felt disconnected, and you wondered why. We reduced graffiti by 80%. We opened up the most vibrant business districts so that we were #1 in job growth. Even in the midst of a recession, we added jobs, good-paying jobs at the hospitals. And Jimmy Kimmel producing on Hollywood Boulevard where nobody had produced live shows in 30 years. The Academy Awards coming back. Tourism at its record year last year. Those things that provide actually food on the table to folks. We cut, not just violent crime, but we looked at the quality of life everywhere. We asked businesses to come in. In Hollywood alone, we increased the economic output by 475% in 10 years. It's the #1 success story in California of any neighborhood. So when it comes saying I want to be mayor, it's not some abstract idealism like, hey, that sounds cool, and I like LA, and I know Alejandro, so I'm sure we could do it. It's more of real concrete. I've done the change, I've seen it, and I know Alejandro, we can get this done. And if he just gets 1 out of 10 LPN members to help out, we're going to be unstoppable.